Talent has no ethnicity and no skin color. But it needs to be discovered and nurtured. And that is when anything becomes possible. In 2013, American Ballet Theatre created Project Plié, an unprecedented diversity and inclusion initiative. A pipeline to introduce children of all races and backgrounds to ballet, to provide training they might not find otherwise, to open their eyes to all the ways this art can transform their horizons.
As America's national ballet company, we strive to reflect the vibrant diversity of this country. And we're so grateful to the leaders and visionaries, friends and advisors and trustees of American Ballet Theatre who founded Project Plié. Thanks to them, we have now reached 3,500 kids in 35 cities, 79 boys and girls clubs across America.
One of the fundamental ingredients in building organizations and teams of excellence is to attract and procure the best talent. We have to be open in our outreach and remove barriers to access. That's why the board of ABT and its ambassadors is so supportive of this initiative. Project Plié is a comprehensive initiative, from our interns to our teacher training, to our talent pipeline, and to our leadership. We want to be the place where people can become the best in their fields of endeavor.
The artistic vision for Project Plié has evolved, and it continues to evolve. I want to demystify the art form because I have never known someone to go to the ballet for the first time and walk out not stunned with disbelief that all of their assumptions had been shattered. And the way you demystify something is you give access to it to everyone.
The initiative's beneficiaries include children like Mei-Ling and Shui-Ling Li, who've been given the chance to realize their remarkable potential and live their wildest dreams.
Project Plié is a family and it cheers me up and I love it. I can do what I love and be part of one of the best dance programs and get a chance to be great at what I want to do.
Project Plié has given me opportunities to meet new young dancers and express my feelings, and also help me towards my goal to becoming a professional dancer.
This is Project Plié, discovering ability, nurturing talent, expanding horizons. This is the future of American ballet.
Good morning, and it's really a great honor to be able to put some of the stories behind this short video that you just saw, and we're going to explore an amazing ballet theater project. And I'm going to start with Susan, an award-winning producer, writer, author, arts advocate. And so tell us about the origins of Project Plié.
Yes, first of all, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I take you back to the year 2006. I was the vice chairman of the board of American Ballet Theatre. And when I joined the board 3 years before, we had 4 promising African-American dancers. And in 2006, all of a sudden, we were down to Misty Copeland, who at that point was just in the corps de ballet. Her future was not assured. And it was the 21st century. And a group of us board members said, we cannot look like an Alabama country club in 1952. Ballet has never been a hotbed of diversity, but it's unacceptable, and we're the national ballet company, and we need to really examine this problem. So the first step, of course, is to actually acknowledge you have a problem. And what we discovered was it wasn't out-and-out prejudice. It was just really sort of the tradition. And let's remember that African Americans have been trying to dance ballet in this country from the time ballet became important in this country in the 30s. but they have been marginalized. And so we said, this has to stop, and it has to stop now. And so we began by looking at how do we recruit, what are the barriers to entry, giving challenge grants. And the dream was always to begin to solve the problem and then to scale it and look at a national solution. And I want to say one word about why does this matter. Their mention was made in that eloquent speech by David Rubenstein about Thomas Jefferson. And while he said all men were created equal, he did also write in Notes on the State of Virginia that blacks were not capable of true art. They had sort of scratching on a fiddle. And there's a tradition in Enlightenment thinking that people of African descent are not civilized enough to create true art. And we see this borne out in Phyllis Wheatley not being acknowledged as a poet, and Marian Anderson being questioned as to whether she could be an opera singer. And ballet was the last frontier, and we were determined to break that. And what you're seeing here is the result that within 10 years, an enormous stride has been made.
Thank you. Cynthia, you are currently the artistic director of the Kennedy Onassis School of the American Ballet Theater. So tell us how Project Plié works, and talk a little bit about the Boys and Girls Club connection.
Well, currently we have what we call a bridge class, where we audition children from our community enrichment programs. We are partnered with 12 companies nationally and several schools in the New York tri-state area. And we ask those teachers from those schools to provide us with their most talented children who they feel would benefit from further ballet training. And we've formed a bridge class. We bring the children in to our school on a Tuesday, and they take class with each other. They're talented, and it gives us the opportunity to see the future of what could possibly be members of our company. We partnered with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, primarily on Misty Copeland's suggestion, I think.
She took her
because
first ballet.
That's where her first ballet class was. We have now given 52 scholarships to participants from the Boys and Girls Clubs of America who take part in workshops. Some of these children have never taken a dance step in their lives, and our teachers are trained to teach students who've never danced. So, and we've also given 44 scholarships to teachers of ethnic diversity who've trained in our national training curriculum. This is largely in part to the Andrew Mellon Foundation. We've increased that to our interns in the building, and this year we've upped the number to 40% intake of people of ethnic diversity in the company, not just the school. So the bridge class takes place, and we're hoping to actually matriculate these students into the school, those who continue to want to dance, because I think it's a whole new experience for them, being in the rarefied world of American Ballet Theater. So to get them on board takes some convincing that they can do this. This is not beyond their reach.
That's great. So you mentioned that you have partnerships with companies around the country. And Kirven, you are currently in St. Louis. You are the co-artistic director of dance at the Center for Creative Arts. And you are a certified teacher of Project Plié. So talk a little bit about how the project has reached out nationally, the work that you're currently doing.
Absolutely. One of the very first things that Antonio and I did when we joined the COCA team in 2015 was look at the curriculum and the student body. And we were looking at Project Plié, we were looking at the national training curriculum and seeing how these, the messaging and the goals of the program aligned with the work that we were doing at COCA, and naturally it was a great fit. And so Antonio and I are both certified through level 5 of the national training curriculum, and we recently hosted Richard Toda, who is one of the many Project Plié teachers in St. Louis, and he did master classes and outreach at different elementary schools, and just watching the students and how they took to the information. The national training curriculum is a really beautifully crafted approach to dance education, and watching them at that introductory level achieving those things it's like a light bulb moment, and you think about retention, and you think about all of these things that are important to schools of dance, and removing barriers, making sure that the students get everything that they need in order to train at both respective schools. And it was just a natural fit for us to try to align with what's happening in New York at the JKO school.
Thank you. So Susan, you mentioned that part of the intent of the project was also to diversify funders, so talk about the philanthropic side and what impact Project Plie has had at the ABT.
Well, certainly it's created the browning of the Metropolitan Opera House. The Met used to not really draw a very diverse audience, and now it's bringing in all kinds of New York City constituencies, and we've been able to attract donors who aren't necessarily balletomans, but they understand that by giving to ABT and giving to Project Plie, they are actually achieving goals of social equity and justice. And you get just tremendous enthusiasm and participation and buy-in from that. But it's also very important for people of color to stand up and be counted as philanthropists. Darren Walker mentioned there's no funding for sickle cell anemia research. This project has attracted a lot of high-level African-American donors because they understand what the purpose is, even if ballet is not their first passion.
So Cynthia, how would you say that the impact of Project Plie has been in terms of the larger arts and cultural community, as well as what impact has the larger community had on the project?
I think from my perspective, knowing that ABT has had to look at its DNA and address this issue, by committing to it out loud, we've actually really looked at where else are we not diversifying. We're now looking at female choreographers, for example, because it's known now that it's the time where the female is not actually being represented in our world either, except as a dancer. So it's forced us to really look at ourselves and to, you know, make a commitment to make change. And it's definitely made a difference within our organization. I've only been in the company since 2017 as director, and I've seen in 1 year, we've had 24% of our institution with African-American people. Now we have 40 in 1 year, 40%.
Behind the scenes, which is very important.
That is hugely important because the children want to see people that they can relate to. And then they'll understand that they're part of the system. Then they're not feeling segregated.
And so Kirven, has that same impact? Have you seen that in St. Louis and the work that you're doing, both in terms of the audience as well as those that are giving?
Absolutely. You know, there were very few dancers of color that were training in our ballet program before Antonio and I went to COCA, and there's a huge shift in that with just the accessibility of this curriculum and the comfort that the students feel when you're able to articulate exactly what it is that they need to progress and to grow. And you know, they bring their parents, they bring their friends, and then people are introduced to the institution who never even knew what we did, and it definitely brings a whole new crowd of people.
So in terms of philanthropy, and maybe we just have a few more minutes, could each of you just maybe speak to the kind of impact that you hope that this not only has on ABT, but in the dance world at large? Maybe Cynthia, starting with you.
I think for me, impact would represent the fact that I find a student who could be the next David Hallberg or Misty Copeland, that they would be the next Baryshnikov. By not looking into the community and serving those needs, we don't have that opportunity. And I want to make sure that we are not missing out on some child who can have a super talent, who could be recognized and do what they love. I love what I'm doing, and I would hate for some child who has that love not to be given that opportunity.
So maybe Kirven, for you?
There's something to be said about removing the barriers so that kids can have exposure to the art and what that does as they grow and progress into adulthood. I think that it's really, really important to continue to expose children to art so that they grow into effective leaders, you know, and regardless of the intention, if you want to be a dancer, or if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to be a lawyer, I think that the training that comes through the arts, it really, you know, it makes for critical thinkers and really great leaders.
Susan, talk about your own philanthropy as it relates to this project. I know that you set up.
So let's say philanthropy with a big P and philanthropy with a little p. Some people can endow buildings. I'm endowing an outhouse at my old university. But it is actually empowering to see, Mr. Rubenstein is right, that in the arts you can have an impact far beyond your dollars. I like to endow scholarships because for me the gift of hope and possibility, and I grew up around a lot of very gifted artists of color, Carmen de Lavalla, Janet Collins, my own mother, etc., whose dreams were deferred. And to live in a time when you can look a child of color in the eye and say, you will go as far as your talent can take you, that's what it's all about. And when I look at Misty, when I was growing up, Mikhail Baryshnikov was the face of ballet. If you ask the average person today who's the face of ballet, it's Misty Copeland. That is enormous progress. That's hope. She is the Roger Bannister of ballet. The 4-minute mile has been broken. And so for me, it's all about living up to the words of Nelson Mandela. It's always impossible until it is done. And I'm very proud of ABT because they are doing it and have done it and have taken a leadership role. And as Darren Walker said, stepped out of the box of, well, we do ballet. They're becoming a leader in social justice and equity.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned that you set up a scholarship for one of the dancers.
Yes. So it's named after my mother, and it is endowed in perpetuity, but again, it's a lot cheaper than a building, so I highly recommend it. And it is to train talented dancers of color and to receive letters like the one I did from the beautiful young lady you're going to see here today, saying this helps her give her wings. I'm dying a happy woman. When I die, which is not
not rush.
No, yeah, let's not rush.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So Misty Copeland's shoes, ballet shoes, are in the exhibition, so we hope that you will be able to see those if you haven't already. And I think certainly her inspiration and the work that you all are doing is just really amazing. So Cynthia, just in closing, anything else that you would like to share with the group about kind of your hopes for it?
No, I think that really my hopes are to reflect our diverse population, and I'm delighted that ABT has taken these steps, and as Susan and Kirven will attest, it's really making progress, and you know, onward we go, and we continue to keep this hope going. And without that, I would like to also introduce some students who are going to perform for you, one of whom is Miss Fales-Hill's scholarship recipient. So if it's okay that I introduce them now.
Absolutely, but please join me in thanking the panel, and we're...
Thank you. I would like to introduce, first of all, Azrielle Smith. Azrielle is the scholarship student that Ms. Fales-Hill was speaking about. This is Azrielle. Please take your place. Our next student who's performing for us is Stephen Britt. Stephen is from Atlanta, Georgia, and I found him at the New York Dance Alliance. Is a huge talent. And finally, I have Kelly Hicks, who's from, well, I don't know if you're actually from Los Angeles, but I know that I found her through a friend in Los Angeles, and she's also a beautiful talent. So the three of them are ready to perform for you a little pas de trois from a condensed version of Sleeping Beauty. Thank you.